What's up, it's Cinema Shogun here, and where are all my 90s babies at? If you're a 90s baby, chime down in the comments below. Maybe even some of y'all raised some 90s babies. Do I have anyone in here that was born in the early 2000s? Let me know down in the comments below. My viewers are typically older than me, actually. But anyway, I am a proud 90s baby. I feel like the 90s were the greatest decade in human history. From the TV shows and the movies, down to just how society was as a whole. I feel like the 90s scared the powers that be, because I feel like we were coming together as a society. We were putting our differences to the side. You know, our racial tensions were way lower then than they are now. I just felt like we as Americans, at least, were way more cohesive in the 90s, which is why I feel like they've been trying to rattle things over the past couple of years, because they don't want true unity. But anyway, growing up in the 90s, one of my favorite things was 90s Nickelodeon. You cannot beat 90s Nickelodeon. Things like the Rugrats, Ren and Stimpy, Angry Beavers, Hey Arnold, Doug. And then, of course, the live action shows were amazing. You had Kenan and Kel, All That, the Amanda Bynes show. Now, speaking of Amanda Bynes, that's actually why we're here today. I'm actually making a video about Amanda Bynes today because I am really scared for her well-being. And if any of you all have followed up with Amanda Bynes over the last, it's been a while, over the last decade, then you know that she's been going through a lot mentally. And you know, the sad part is, I talk about how much I loved the 90s. I loved 90s pop culture. I loved all the 90s movies and TV shows that I grew up with. But there's one thing that is for certain. A lot of the child stars that we grew up watching, they obviously were having a hard time in Hollywood. And we never knew it when we were growing up. Our little minds couldn't even wrap around something like that. You know, growing up watching all of that, you would think, oh man, those kids have it great. They're on TV. They get to tell jokes and stuff for a living. You would never think that these kids often have some dark childhoods behind the scenes. Also, when you're that young, and even back then in the 90s, there was still a veil over Hollywood, if you will. Like, there was still a magic and mysticism to Hollywood. And we really didn't get to see behind the scenes like we do now. So back then, I don't think it was as widely known that there was a lot of wicked, creepy, nasty, downright dirty stuff happening in Hollywood behind the scenes, especially with these child stars. But you know, this is actually a topic that I talk about pretty often. We talk about child stars and celebrities and the cruel things that are done to them in Hollywood behind the scenes. And don't get me wrong, I don't really like Hollywood. And I know there are bigger problems in today's world. But to get to the bottom of things, we can't ignore pop culture. And we can't ignore a lot of these wicked things that are done in Hollywood. Make no mistake about it. Our society is molded in many ways by pop culture, by things that happen in Hollywood, by the things we see on TV, by the things we see in movies and shows and on these streaming services. So I don't think any of us should ever totally ignore pop culture. Because if you want to know how we got here, why today's world is the way it is, why things are so crazy, well, look no further than pop culture. But, we didn't have an idea back then how crazy things were behind the scenes in Hollywood. So little did we know when we would see Amanda Bynes pop up on our TV screens, a young, talented actress that had all the energy and spunk in the world, Someone who I believed was destined for greatness. She had a great on-scene presence. But little did we know all of the things that were going on behind the scenes with her. And the same thing goes with a lot of other celebrities. And, I make it a point to point this stuff out because a lot of these celebrities are child stars, if you will. They were here for us in some very crucial times in our life. When you were sad as a kid, you would turn on your television and there would be these child stars there to entertain you. Yet when they get older, no one seems to care anymore. And Hollywood especially, it eats these kids up, it chews them up, and it spits them out. It spits them out. They're no longer a child, they no longer look the same or what have you, and they just kick them to the curb. Not to mention all of the things that are sometimes done to these kids behind the scenes by their own parents, by producers in Hollywood. It's a recipe for disaster. You would think being a child star is so great, for the most part, for those that don't graduate into adult stardom. For the most part, these kids are scarred for life. These kids are often scarred for life, and that's the case with Amanda Bynes. So when someone asks me, why do I cover these topics? Well, because for one, like I said, I'm a big 90s baby. I was into all of these television shows growing up. And when I see one of these people having issues as an adult, I'm not someone that wants to totally ignore that. Because in ways, these people and these shows were here for me at a time when I needed them. So sometimes I think these stars are these ex-stars, ex-celebrities, if you will. Sometimes I feel like we should be there for them. If that makes sense, does that make sense to any of you all? Does that make sense to any of you? Also, I think there's interesting conversations to be had surrounding these child stars. Because when you see what has been done to them, when you see the mental health issues they suffer from, and when you really peel back the curtains and you look into these situations, you start to see the dark and twisted side of Hollywood. And the dark and twisted side of Hollywood needs to be called out. It needs to be exposed. So Amanda Bynes is someone who's for years, she has been struggling. She was put on a conservatorship, much like the conservatorship that Britney Spears was put on. Now, when this movement came about, there was this Free Britney movement to free Britney Spears from a conservatorship. Most of you all probably know about that. I talk about it a lot on my channel. A lot of you all are here. You already know what's up. I got a lot of new people here as well. So if you don't know about all of the crazy Britney stuff, man, it is wild. It is wild. And I've made plenty of videos on it. But this movement started to free Britney Spears from her conservatorship. And the movement went on to basically call out all conservatorships. And eventually, during all of this stuff, Amanda Bynes was let off of her conservatorship. Now, a conservatorship is basically like having a guardian over you that makes certain decisions for you. They may control your finances so you don't, try to ball out of control, spend all your money. They come in and have a little bit of a say-so over your life to ensure that you don't just go all the way off the deep end. Now, of course, conservatorships in Hollywood, when you're dealing with people who have boatloads of money, and I'm not saying that Amanda Bynes had boatloads of money, although at one point I'm sure she did, you always wonder, are people here for for bad reasons? Are people here to take advantage of these stars? So Amanda Bynes was let off of her conservatorship. There's been a good bit of interesting things that have happened since then. Amanda Bynes, if you want to know what she's doing right now, like last time I checked, she was trying to be a rapper or something. It's really random. She's completely made herself look different. And I'm not trying to be mean, but she looks like the typical like Hollywood super liberal type that have gone out of their way to make themselves look less attractive than what they really are. So that's going on. But anyway, the real reason why I'm here is because apparently, and I know I've been talking y'all's head off, but apparently Amanda Bynes was just found butt naked roaming the streets of LA, having a complete psychotic breakdown. I kid you not. So it's like one of those pictures you see online, like, where are these child stars now? Well, Amanda Bynes, someone that I grew up watching on Nickelodeon all the time, watching in various, young kid movies that came out back in the day, and here we are now. She was just found walking the streets of LA naked. A really sad case, but I'm going to dive into this article, and then after the article, I'll provide you all with more thoughts and opinions. Amanda Bynes placed on psychiatric hold after roaming streets naked. Amanda Bynes has been placed on a psychiatric hold after she was found roaming the streets naked and alone. An eyewitness says Bynes was seen walking near downtown Los Angeles early Sunday morning without any clothes on at all. We're told Bynes waved down a car, telling the driver she was coming down from a psychotic episode. Amanda then herself called 911. Law enforcement sources say Bynes was taken to a nearby police station where a mental health team determined she needed to be placed on a 5150 psych hold. Fortunately, sources say it doesn't appear Bynes was hurt at all during the ordeal, though things could have been much worse given the area in which she was found. A source close to Amanda says that she's currently hospitalized and will likely continue to receive care for several days. Typically, a psychiatric hold only lasts 72 hours, but it can be extended. It was almost 1 year to the day when Amanda Bynes' 9-year conservatorship was officially terminated. Amanda's mother was her conservator starting back in 2013 when it was clear she was having issues with her mental health. She was diagnosed with bipolar disorder after a series of bizarre incidents, including one where she set her neighbor's driveway on fire, almost engulfing her dog in flames. She was sent to a psychiatric ward for treatment. Interestingly enough, Amanda was supposed to attend 90s Con in Connecticut this weekend, an event she canceled due to her illness. Since the conservatorship ended, Amanda seemed to be doing well for herself, though the most recent incident is obviously very concerning. It's unclear if her parents or legal team will step in. Now, if you think that's wild, then I suggest you do some research on Amanda Bynes, because I believe it was a couple of years ago she actually accused her father of putting a microchip in her brain. She accused her father of all types of stuff, like stuff that I'm not supposed to say here on YouTube. Accused her father of touching her inappropriately, doing inappropriate things. And then she claimed, wait, no, he didn't do that. And then she claimed the microchip in my brain made me say that. And then she went on to claim that her father is the one that ordered for her to be microchipped. It runs really deep. And, you know, a lot of people think that Amanda Bynes is MK Ultra. And, whoa. I wouldn't be surprised if she was. If anyone was, maybe it's her. But I'm telling you right now, the only thing that is stopping Britney Spears from being in a similar situation, walking around LA butt naked, having a psychotic breakdown, is the fact that she has handlers and things like that who ensure that she doesn't leave the house. And, you know, bodyguards that make sure she doesn't leave and go out when she wants and does what she wants. Amanda Bynes has basically been thrown all the way out there, living in a little apartment in LA, and sometimes she has these breakdowns. And she also had a boyfriend at one point that was really toxic. They had a very toxic relationship. But this is just another example of what is happening to these kids in Hollywood. And I know Amanda Bynes is an adult now. She's older than I am. But I'm not going to just ignore what's happening here. Because when you take a step back and you look at all of these child stars, and you see how many of them wind up going down a similar path as Amanda Bynes, as Britney Spears, as Orlando Brown from That's So Raven and stuff. If you haven't checked up on him lately, I got a video out there about him as well. But it's gotten to the point where I don't feel like we should ignore this anymore. And there's so many examples we could refer to. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a one-off thing. Like, oh, another child star went crazy. No, it's like every other child star is having these crazy issues. And it's all stemming from weird, crazy things that are done to them behind the scenes in Hollywood. From Hollywood bigwigs, Hollywood producers, and the powers that be. So in my opinion, we should start taking situations like what's happening with Amanda Bynes more seriously. Because this is how we pinpoint and ultimately take down a lot of these evil Hollywood elites. And everyone always wants to talk about the elites, the evil Hollywood, Pedowood. Like, everyone wants to talk about it. But then when something like what happens to Amanda Bynes, a lot of people, they turn a blind eye towards it. Or they will make excuses for the behavior. Or they'll say, oh, it's just another Hollywood person. Who cares? Who cares? And I understand that mentality because I've got to the point where I despise most people in Hollywood. But most of these child stars, they didn't have a choice. They were thrusted into this life at an early age, some since birth. You know what I mean? They're thrusted into these lives and they're not taught how to navigate life afterwards. When the spotlights turn off, after all of them have been, had things done to them by random people and all this stuff, they're never taught how to navigate life. And some make it out, some find their way, and a lot of them tragically end up like Amanda Bynes. And we as a society, we look at them like they're zoo animals. We look at these child stars that we used to grow up watching and idolizing. We used to grow up watching these people. And then as adults, we're looking at them like zoo animals, watching them on TMZ and watching them on the E! News Network, watching them lose their minds in viral videos, watching them do spaced out interviews with people who are there to take advantage of them for more clicks and views. And we do that instead of simply maybe acknowledging there's a problem here. Maybe lending a helping hand, maybe making a video to raise awareness about what's going on. So I think that we should start taking this more seriously. And I think we need to start investigating, which, let's be honest, we know the reason why, but the conversation still isn't being had. So we need to start investigating, why are all of these child stars going off the deep end? Who and what is happening to them in Hollywood? But for now, I want to know your thoughts about this down in the comment section. While you're down there, hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe, ring that notification bell, and I'll talk to you in the next video.